There's a plant growing in that crack in your driveway right now, the one you've probably pulled out and thrown away 100 times, that contains more omega-3 fatty acid, gram for gram, than a fillet of salmon. Not a rare superfood shipped in from a rainforest. Not something you need a subscription box for. It's already in your yard. It's been feeding humans for at least 4,000 years. And in 2022, a team at Yale found it does something with photosynthesis that scientists thought was biologically impossible. It's classified, almost everywhere in the world, as a weed. This is the story of Purslane, how we forgot it was food, and what the actual science says about it today. Let's start with what you're looking for, because this plant is genuinely everywhere. Its name is Portulaca oleracea, common purslane. It has smooth, reddish stems that grow low and spread flat along the ground. Thick, succulent leaves shaped like little paddles, and tiny yellow flowers tucked between the leaves that only open in full sun. Break a stem, and it's juicy, almost translucent. That's the giveaway. It grows on every continent except Antarctica. Botanists have called it one of the most widely distributed plants on Earth. It thrives in gardens, sidewalk cracks, farm fields, and vacant lots, in soil most vegetables would refuse to grow in. And here's the twist. For most of human history, this wasn't a weed. It was dinner. Archaeologists have found purslane seeds in food storage contexts in Greece dating back roughly 3,000 years. The Greek philosopher Theophrastus, writing in the 4th century BC, gave instructions for cultivating it alongside other crops. The Roman Empire grew it widely. In medieval Europe it was a common vegetable, and a 13th century list of foods eaten in Milan includes it as an everyday staple, not a curiosity. It shows up independently in the Americas too. Archaeological seed evidence puts purslane in indigenous agricultural sites in eastern North America centuries before European contact, grown alongside crops like sunflower and squash. Two civilizations, separated by an ocean, both decided independently that this plant belonged on the table. It never actually disappeared. India calls it kulfa. Greece calls it glistrida. Mexico calls it verdolagas, usually sautéed with garlic and chile. China has cultivated it for centuries as machixian. It shows up in salads and stews across Turkey, Iran, and the wider Middle East. Roughly half the world's food cultures never stopped eating it. It's mainly in parts of North America and Northern Europe that it got rebranded as a lawn nuisance. Now let's get to the claim in the title, because this is the part worth being precise about. Purslane is the richest known vegetable source of alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA. That's the plant-based omega-3 fatty acid. Multiple peer-reviewed studies, going back to a widely cited 1992 analysis published in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition, have measured its ALA content and consistently found it several times higher than spinach and far higher than lettuce on a per-weight basis. A more recent phytochemical review found purslane contains roughly 5 times more total fatty acids than spinach, gram for gram. To be precise about the salmon comparison, the claim isn't that purslane beats salmon on EPA and DHA. The long-chain marine omega-3s your body uses most directly. It's that purslane is exceptionally rich in ALA, the omega-3 your body can partially convert into those marine forms, and unusually, land plants normally make little to none of it. Purslane is one of very few land plants that also shows detectable traces of EPA itself, which is unusual since EPA is typically associated with algae and fish, not garden vegetables. That's the genuinely strange, well-documented part. The omega-3 story isn't the only headline either. Research also shows purslane is unusually high in alpha-tocopherol. vitamin E, with some studies measuring it at roughly 7 times spinach's levels. It's a strong source of vitamin C, beta-carotene, potassium, magnesium, and calcium, and it contains glutathione, an antioxidant compound not common in vegetables at these concentrations. One honest caveat worth including: Purslane is also relatively high in oxalates, compounds that can be a concern for people prone to kidney stones. That doesn't cancel out the nutritional profile. Most leafy greens contain oxalates. But it's worth knowing if that applies to you, and worth talking to a doctor about if kidney stones are something you deal with. In 1958, physiologist Ansel Keys launched what became known as the 7 Countries Study, one of the largest long-term investigations ever conducted into diet and heart disease, following thousands of men across 7 nations for decades. One of the most puzzling results came from Crete. Cretan farmers ate a high-fat diet by the standards of the time, yet the study measured some of the lowest rates of heart disease researchers had recorded anywhere. For years, the explanation researchers reached for was olive oil, but nutrition scientist Artemis Simopoulos, analyzing the diet more closely, pointed to another factor. Purslane was a daily part of the traditional Cretan diet, eaten in salads, cooked into stews, and fed to the free-range chickens and goats that were themselves part of the diet. Her 1992 analysis is the same paper that established Purslane's exceptional ALA content in the first place. This is a well-supported hypothesis, not a settled fact. Diets are complicated, and it's hard to isolate one ingredient's effect in a population eating an overall pattern of olive oil, wild greens, legumes, fish, and low-processed food. But it's a reasonable, evidence-backed explanation for why a population eating that much fat still had such low heart disease rates. A large part of what they were eating alongside the fat was one of the most omega-3 dense plants on the planet. That hypothesis got tested more directly in the Lyon Diet Heart Study in the 1990s, a randomized clinical trial of 605 heart attack survivors, comparing a standard low-fat diet against a Mediterranean-style ALA-rich diet. It's worth being accurate here. The ALA in that trial came mainly from a canola oil-based spread the researchers designed, not from purslane specifically, but it demonstrated the same nutrients' power. The results were striking enough that the trial was stopped early. Patients on the ALA-rich diet had roughly 50 to 70% fewer cardiac events and cardiac deaths compared to the control group, depending on which combined outcome you measure. That's one of the more dramatic results in cardiovascular nutrition research, and it's a big part of why ALA-rich foods, including purslane, get taken seriously by researchers today. Here's the part of the story that isn't hype. It's a real 2022 paper in the journal Science Advances from a team led by Yale biologist Erica Edwards. Some background: most plants use what's called C3 photosynthesis, which works fine as long as water is plentiful. Corn and sugarcane evolved C4 photosynthesis, which lets them stay productive in heat. Desert plants like cacti use CAM photosynthesis. They open their pores only at night to collect carbon dioxide while it's cool, then seal up during the hot day to avoid losing water. That trade-off makes CAM plants very drought-resistant, but generally slow-growing. Scientists already knew purslane could do both C4 and CAM. The assumption was that it kept them separate, using one system in one part of the leaf, the other elsewhere, like two departments that don't talk to each other. What the Yale team found, using detailed gene expression mapping, is that purslane runs both systems inside the very same cells. C4 activity for fast growth during the day, and CAM activity for water conservation at night, with the byproducts of the nighttime CAM reactions feeding directly into the daytime C4 pathway. The paper describes this level of integration as previously undocumented in any known plant. In plain terms, purslane appears to get the drought toughness of a desert cactus and the fast growth of a corn plant, running in the same cells, switched on and off by the time of day. That's why purslane can survive on a fraction of the water field crops need, grow in salty soil that kills most vegetables, and still outgrow many of them when conditions are good. Researchers, including Edward's own lab, are now specifically studying whether this mechanism could be engineered into food crops to make them more drought-resistant. Which matters a lot as farming regions face hotter, drier conditions. That's an active, ongoing research question, not something already achieved. So, if it's this nutritious and this resilient, why does almost every gardening guide tell you to kill it on site? The honest answer isn't a conspiracy, it's competition. Purslane is listed by agricultural researchers among the world's most persistent agricultural weeds because it's extremely good at outcompeting crops for water, nutrients, and space. A single plant can produce well over 100,000 seeds. Those seeds can remain viable in soil for years, and a broken stem fragment that touches soil can root into a brand new plant. For a farmer trying to grow a uniform crop, that's a real problem, and it's the actual, documented reason purslane earned its reputation and its spot in herbicide guides. Not because anyone is hiding its nutrition from you. What's true is that purslane isn't a commercial crop in most of the world, and there are practical reasons for that. It doesn't ship or store as well as hardier vegetables. It hasn't been bred into optimized commercial varieties the way spinach or kale has, and most consumers simply don't recognize it as edible. Those are ordinary market gaps, not suppression. But they are gaps, and they're part of why a plant this nutritious never made it to your grocery store. If you want to try it, here's the practical version. Identify it correctly first. Smooth red stems, thick paddle-shaped leaves, small yellow flowers, juicy when broken. If you're not confident, cross-check with a local plant identification guide or app before eating anything you find growing wild. And only harvest from soil and areas you know haven't been treated with herbicides or pesticides. Young leaves, harvested within the first several weeks of growth, are the most tender. It's eaten raw in salads for a slightly lemony, salty crunch, sautéed like spinach, added to soups and stews, or pickled. If you'd rather not forage, purslane is increasingly available at farmers' markets and specialty grocers, and it's easy to grow deliberately in a garden bed if you'd like a reliable supply instead of relying on what shows up in the cracks of your patio. Purslane isn't a miracle plant, and no single vegetable replaces a balanced diet or medical advice. But the actual peer-reviewed research here is genuinely remarkable. One of the most nutrient-dense, drought-tolerant plants scientists have studied has been growing, unnoticed, in ordinary backyards the whole time. Next time you see it in a sidewalk crack, you might want to look twice before you pull it. If you learned something from this, subscribe for more deep dives into the science hiding in plain sight. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.